Somebody else that's a very hard worker is Steve Jobs, and you had a newsletter called Save Your Startup a few years ago. You shared a quote from Steve Jobs in this. He said that people think focus means saying yes to the things that you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It's about saying no to the 100 other good ideas. Can you talk a little bit more about what Steve Jobs is saying there?
Yeah, so there are a plethora of opportunities, of ideas that one can pursue, and every thing that comes across your desk or a message, whatever it is, that gives you a new form of like idea or task or whatever it is, can cause huge distraction and the opportunity cost of the mental capacity thinking about that very thing. And so I just think it's, like, if you even go back like a step of like where that's coming from, so I suspect it might be the post about validating, keeping the main thing, I think might be the
Stephen Covey quotes.
Might be where that's come from. And when you don't know what the main thing is, when you haven't defined what that main thing is to you, and you're not almost time boxing, like here is 80% of my time should be spent on the main thing. Sure, I can explore these other things, but if you allow that exploration into new ideas, new initiatives, to outweigh, even get close to spend the same amount of time on what the main thing is, then you're doing yourself a massive disservice, and you're causing lots of distraction. And you see it all the time in tech startups I think sometimes their mental models are just off, and you don't truly understand why they're so important to have, why like a framework is so important to have until you get it wrong yourself. There's some quote around like, when you learn from someone else's mistakes, you gain wisdom. When you learn from your own mistakes, you gain experience.
Yeah. So true.
And I think it's sometimes very hard to truly like gain that wisdom from other people's mistakes. And so you go ahead and you make your own mistakes and you gain that experience. And I know I did this, I know many startups do this, where if you don't have like a specific defined problem that you are fixing, and then you don't define who you're solving that for, and you don't have a way to validate that both the problem and who the problem you're solving it for is, then you end up in these scenarios where like an opportunity may come along and you're like, oh yeah, I might actually explore that, and you spend half a day exploring that type of thing, and that happens to you 5 times a week, then half your week's gone. It's like if I said to you, Alfie, you should build a recruitment platform. And the number of people that might even say that to you. And
I get pitched it every single week. Yeah. But no, inch wide, mile deep approach, laser focus, conquer one thing, and then delegate and scale to build other things, but don't try and do step 10 before you do step 1. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, if you go back to Jeff Bezos was like approaching with Amazon, he wanted to like conquer be the department store for the world.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the mission was at the start, but maybe it seems something like that. Yeah. But it started with books.
Yeah, and that was it, just books.
And okay, now everyone knows Amazon's a place to get books. What is it next? Oh, there's DVDs?
Yeah, music, DVDs, and now everything. But he didn't start with everything. Yeah. He built a product which was a feature of some other person's huge platform, but he did that feature better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And rather than trying to take on the world, do what Facebook did and start in a university, and then it spreads.
Yeah. And so I think that particular quote, you can apply to not just your startup, but you can apply to your life, can't you? With what are the key things to you, and if you're constantly saying even yes to like social engagements, then are you going to develop depth of friendships with all of those people? No, you're not. So is there some things that you potentially should be saying no to, so you can spend more time with the people that the top 5 people that you really want to be spending your free time with?
Yeah. One thing that I did recently, which really helps with the time perspective, is I've started putting everything in my calendar. And I mean everything. So I've got sleep scheduled. I've got, wake up, shower, dress, eat, walk the dog, everything. And I don't stick to that, schedule, religiously. It's not some kind of army doctrine sort of thing, but I try and follow it as a framework. But the reason why it's good to have it in there recurring, Mike, is because it shows me how little time I actually have to work. I've got a little bit of time in the morning in between finishing the morning routine and having a quick lunch, and then a little bit of time in the evening before I've got to, work out and focus on the missus and the kid and everything. And then that little window, if I didn't see it visually like that to me, I'd just go off on tangents and I'd start focusing on this project and chasing that. But the person that chases two rabbits, they catch neither of them really. And I don't know if this is what Steve was talking about, but I know when he got fired from Apple and when he came back, he really stripped down the product line and got rid of everything apart from a couple of core products. And say no to the things. The other day, Apple announced that they have cancelled their electric vehicle project, which they've spent 10, 20 years building, thousands of people working on it, billions invested, but they've got rid of it to focus on Gen AI, because obviously they see that more as something to say yes to. So. Yeah. It's interesting. Another thing that Steve Jobs said, which you also shared in a different article, was when you're in a startup, the first 10 people will determine whether the company succeeds or not. Now, obviously, top secret project, we won't talk about what you're doing right now, but I think that applies quite nicely to the situation. So when you're in a startup, the first 10 people will determine whether the company succeeds or not. Can you tell me a little bit more about that idea?
Yeah, totally. And I can even say, when I've built a startup from zero previously as well, that those first 10 people, they're defining your culture. So there's obviously many elements to this, but I think the first one is you're hiring for attitude, you're hiring for grit. The people you're doing to do business with are those. And so initially you're looking at founders, okay, if we were starting a business, we'd be looking at starting point, do we have complementary skill sets?
Sure.
And then it's do we like one another? And hopefully both of those are yeses. And then it's do we have the humility to be able to have, both of us have that humility to have a heated discussion, argument, get to a resolution and go to bed that night being okay with each other, to be able to come back in the next morning and we let's go do this again, get back to work sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's actually really hard to get in the founding team, I think, to get those complementary skill sets. You can have those hard conversations and then be good with each other by the end of that to keep building this business. There are so many startups that the founders break up. That's also where they fail. So even before you get those first 10 team members, those founders need to be getting on. Yeah. And then you go beyond that, and again, you want some more complementary skill sets that come in, but you're also hiring for that attitude. When you're hiring those people in, that is creating the culture. You can do whatever you like when it comes to, our mission's this and these are our values. But if those 10 people don't epitomise that same thing that you're looking at, or they don't bring something extra to the table that's we need that thing, we're missing that thing, we've found it within this person, then you're also in a problematic position. One bad egg, and I've seen this and experienced this myself, in those 10 people can cause a massive wedge, whether they're trying to, whether that individual is playing a political game, whether maybe just their skill set isn't up to the task that you initially needed, whether they're just not quite the right fit. All of those things can cause them to come out like a bad egg. Maybe they're just not ready for a small hustling startup where they don't have those same frameworks to work from like they would in a corporate.
Sure.
Many different reasons why they might not be the right fit, and that bad egg actually brings everybody down. And so then output is worse because there's this little riff in the team. You're where'd it come from? I have had this in the past, and when that's happened in the past, you're it's incredibly painful. But when that pain is removed and that person leaves, it's incredible to see the difference of like how fast a team can move and how much more enjoyable the workspace is for that team when that bad egg isn't there anymore. And again, like, I want to make sure I'm clear on, a bad egg doesn't mean that they are a bad person. It might just be that that's not quite the right fit for what you're trying to accomplish. And it's just so much more important in that first group of 10 that they do all get on and they work really well together. Because if there's any wedge in amongst that, as you get, like, if you're a team of 100 and you have a bad egg, it's problematic. But it's not going to be catastrophic like it can be at a team of 10.
Sure. Yeah. I think it was Bezos who said, he'd rather interview 50 people for a startup and hire nobody rather than hire the wrong person.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. If you've got a bad egg, bad apple, and it really, really can very quickly, and I've seen it a million times, that mindset can infect the entire team. Yeah. And then you've got star performers who suddenly turn into B and C players, and then the entire thing fails. So the early team, they're the future leaders of the business if they want to go into management roles, right? And their mindset becomes what their team's mindsets become. It all trickles down, basically, right? So it's so important.
Just on that note, have you read the Netflix book on culture?
I haven't, no, but I know of it. I've bought it, actually. It's sitting on my bookshelf along with 50 other books that I haven't got around to reading. But it's got a big N on the cover, I believe.
Something like that. And I think without spoiling, I think it's really worthwhile to read that to any of your listeners. That is a great book on, I think, on some of the things the ethos that they had around building their team initially. And one of the things around creating talent density. Yeah. And if you have a whole bunch of A+ people together, they make each other better. Yeah. But as soon as you insert an average, like a B, into those A+, the B doesn't come up to the A+. Yeah. The A+s get dragged down to the B. Yeah. And so again, it's so important to have those really ambitious high achievers together, because they're going to bring out the best in one another. It's
actually my favourite Steve Jobs quote. He said that it's really, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's really easy for a small team of A players to run rings around a big team of B or C players, basically. So it's not about, people talk about headcount, I've got 50 people, I've got 100 people. I'd rather have 10 people if those 10 people were Spartans and they could take on a massive army, right? That's what's important, quality rather than quantity.